UNESCO World Heritage Site. They took it off of there in 1953. They put it on the heritage site because they were going to rebuild Chief Squall's house and maintain it and have it as a tourist destination, but they never got around to doing it. So they took it off the list. And anyway, it was put on the list because it was one of the totem pole capitals, and we had so many poles there, and our poles are, they're all over. We have poles in several museums around the world, artifacts, and I'll tell you more about that when we get out there, because I have a really cool story to tell you.
Have you decided the animals that you'll carve for the house pole?
I have. It is going to be a raven. It'll be a raven, and it's the baby raven story. It's on 2 of our poles out here, and it's on an old house post from old Kassan. And I chose the baby raven story because it's one of our origin stories. This here would be the first house post that's done just by our tribe without outside funding. My position here as tribal president, I get a stipend, and I'm also the tribal historian that is paid for with discretionary funds, which our only income is you guys. So anyway, it's monumental.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's incredible.
All by yourself, or do you have other people you work with that you're training?
Not specifically, because we don't have the funding to put people on staff like that. Like I said, our discretionary funds are minimal right now. Not that we want outside. For this particular project, I want it to be us and what we're doing, and to be able to say that it was paid for by visitors.
Do you have an interest in the house being renewed as a World Heritage UNESCO site?
This house out here that we're going to was redone in 2016. A lot of repairs and things like that were done on it. Stormy, that you'll meet him later. You can ask him a little bit more about that. He was part of that project.
So as the carving skills were, broken and not passed down, and you were having to learn on your own and all that, do any of the carvers throughout Southeast meet and train each other and work together? Like, I'm from Sitka, so I'm thinking Tommy Joseph carves up there, and do you guys get together and share your craft and knowledge? And
Yeah, when people can. I've spent time with a couple of, with Joe and TJ Young. I don't know if you know them, a couple Haida carvers from Heidelberg. So I've had some people to learn from, but I haven't had an opportunity to spend a couple months or a year or 2 years. Yeah, because there are guys that can go into a 2-year apprenticeship with some master carvers today. But I haven't had that opportunity.
do you use any physics equations when you're thinking about how much stress the bottom figure can take, or is it all from memory and practice and talking about it?
Yeah, I don't know about that, about any physics that go into it. What kind of trees?
Paint.
Oh, paint? Whatever I can find at the local hardware store. Yeah, in the old days it would be blood for red mixed with salmon berries for the oil. You would take coal and mix it with the salmon berries, for the color black. Those are our primary colors, and sometimes you'll find some turquoise in there, which would be a copper and zinc, and you would use the scrapings of a burnt clamshell to get some of the color. So today it's a hardware store.
How deep do you go? Are you almost done hollowing it out? Or
Yeah, I'm just gonna make this here even, so I'll probably come down about this much further.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think Mom has a question.
Hey, here you go.
How old were you when you started playing?
Let's see.
A little older than she.
Yeah, yeah. Must have been 41. Yeah. Yeah, it came a long way for me because when I was growing up, it wasn't. We weren't proud to be Indians. You know, it was kind of a shame. You know, and because you know, when it came to playing cowboys and Indians, you know, when I was a kid in the 70s, that's a lot of what was on TV, and so naturally we played cowboys and Indians, and even in our own village, we didn't want to be the Indian. The Indians lose. You know, and through the conditioning of Hollywood, of course, and ironically today, it's what's her name, Little Feather is being recognized. Do you guys, anybody remember when Marlon
Yes.
Brando?
Got on stage.
Yeah,
with you guys.
yeah, that was 50 years ago, I think today.
Do you all know the story? No. Maybe you tell me.
Marlon Brando was an old actor. He won the Oscar
Yeah.
or the Academy Award
Yeah.
for Best Actor for The Godfather. And there was a stand taking place at Wounded Knee, I think, is that right? At Wounded Knee? Anyway, there was a stand taking place, and Marlon Brando would not accept the award. And there was a Sioux gal from South Dakota that went up on stage in his place and denied the award. So anyway, yeah, so back to like the 70s, and yeah, so it wasn't a great thing. And I grew up, like I mentioned earlier, the economy here had fizzled out. My dad grew up a fisherman in the 60s. The cannery, there was no more cannery, the fishing was done. My dad was starting a family, so he went into diesel mechanics. And this took place down in Puget Sound in Washington, and that's where I grew up, in North Seattle, Washington. I always came back to Kassan, spent my summers here growing up. And there, most of the American Indians lived in Indian reservations back then. They didn't live in middle-class suburbs. So me, at the time, there weren't very many colored brown people around at that time. So I would actually stay out of the sun deliberately so that I did not get too brown, because people would comment and actually call names because of the color of my skin. So I was shamed out of my culture, as well as you know, already not really being there because of the missionary and government influence. So I come around to this reawakening and start, like I mentioned before, learning who I was, and that, you know, there's a pride that comes with it now. So, you know, hi. Yeah. Those are just planter boxes. Yeah. Yeah.
Knowledge boxes.
Oh wow, look at that.
It's an example of a drum.
Is that cedar also?
Yeah. And this is bentwood. This here, and down here, this is all one piece of wood.
Whoa.
Okay, it's called bentwood. You might have seen some of the bentwood boxes. They call it bentwood because they would notch it out, take a plank, notch it out, steam it, right? Pick it up, wait until you got a box. Yeah, it's a bentwood box. Yeah. Cool.
How long would it take to make one bend? Like, is it?
Oh, not that long. Steam it for a couple hours. And then once you bend it, you want to do it quick. And take it out of the steamer and bend it up and clamp it into place, and then it'll dry in place. Yeah, and if you try to straighten it, it'll crack. So, have you guys seen much form line design? A little bit. This is kind of cool.
Yeah, not like this Brentwood done.
You know, this form line design is made up of 3 primary shapes. You got the ovoid, the U shape, which you might recognize that goes down the side of the Seahawks uniforms, and the split. An ovoid is not quite a, it's not an oval. It was coined by a guy named Bill Holm that worked with the Burke Museum in Washington, an art historian and curator down there.